Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today, I'm going to take a look at this little hot item called the Great War. It's a new design based on a tried and true command and color system from Richard Bork. And this game is produced by a company called PSC Games, Plastic Soldier Company Games. They're based in the UK. It is a World War I commands and color system game. Let's take a look at it. We'll see what we think afterwards. Now, each scenario dictates how many of certain things each player gets for that specific scenario. This scenario dictates that each player gets 5 command cards and 3 combat cards. It also dictates that each player's reserve artillery has a power of 4, which means that you have the ability to roll up to 4 directional dice when you're firing your reserve artillery. And then it also dictates the number of HQ tokens that each player will start the game with. In this specific scenario, the British start with 10 and the Germans start with only 8. And now we're ready to begin the game, except for one more thing. We have to set up what is called no man's land. No man's land, each scenario will tell you what rows on the field are no man's land. For this specific scenario, these 4 rows right here across the entire board are no man's land, and it has to be set up in this manner. Now in this specific scenario, the British are in charge of setting up no man's land, and they would do so going from left to right. Now what's going to happen is the player will roll a die, and so whatever pips comes up, he counts that many over for going from left to right, and in whatever hex is rolled, so we roll a 4. So we start over here going from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. If there is any kind of terrain in there or any units, it's still counted, but no shell craters are put there. Okay, so here is our first hex, but there's a unit and terrain there, so we don't worry about it. We just roll another die, and then we go 1 more. So we start from here and go 1 more, and there we would place a shell crater token. And then from there, we keep rolling, and there's 2. So we go 1, 2, and another one is placed there, and right next to it, and we would continue in that form. And so now we have no man's land set up, and we can start the scenario. Now, the specific scenario rules for this one dictates that if one of my British units can occupy a German trench hex at the beginning of my turn, I get a victory medal for that, and that will count towards, it's a temporary victory medal, and I have it as long as I hold that, and it'll count towards my victory medals needed for winning the game. So I'm kind of running and gunning here. The other special rule that the Germans have is that if they play a recon card, where they order only 1 unit on the battlefield, instead of taking 2 cards and choosing one, they can just take 1 card and take a victory point medal as well. So that can speed up the game a little bit. So I'm under the gun as the British player trying to overrun his forces. I have more forces than he does, but his forces are deeply trenched in, and I will have to cross no man's land in order to try to engage in winning more victory medals. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead. The British player does start the game, so let's get into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play a probe right. That's 2 units on the right flank, and what we're going to do is we're going to use one of our units. Because this card does not specifically delineate battlefield units, I can actually use one of these two orders to order my reserve artillery. So I'm actually going to do that. And whenever you do order your reserve artillery, they're always the first ones to battle. So the second one, so I'm going to go ahead and order, let's see here, one of these guys, and we're going to go forward into this shell crater right there. Now, a couple of ideas here that I need to tell you. If you're in a trench, you can actually ignore 2 soldier silhouettes and 2 retreat silhouettes. There's a lot of protection in the trench. These shell craters allow you to ignore 1 of each, and then open ground you can't ignore anything. So moving out of my trench is maybe not the best idea, but I've got a plan. So that's my first one. They're not going to have anybody to shoot at. Well, they do have somebody to shoot at, so maybe we'll take a pot shot, but I doubt we will. Reserve artillery. This is how reserve artillery works. First of all, I take my targeting hex and I place it on the hex that I want to target. Now, as I'm placing my command, my targeting icon, I'm going to place it right there on top of. I'm actually targeting the hex where the machine gun nest is, but I'm also going to possibly be able to score hits based upon the directional dice that I roll. So I pay my 4 tokens as I did, and I can roll 4 directional dice to see where that lands. So now what I would do here is I would place targeting dice on the hexes that they are equal to. All right. Now, since I didn't roll 2 of the same number anywhere, this is considered as being missed. So I'm not going to be able to roll any target dice there. However, I still get to roll 1 target die for each of these that are around. So since there is a die here, I get to roll 1 die against them. Now, this die is going to score hits on soldier silhouettes and burst symbols. Had I rolled a double somewhere around and been able to roll on the target hex as well, not just burst and soldier silhouettes, but also the deadly die side of the face would also count. So that would be a very high probability of hitting and scoring casualties here, but less so on the periphery. So for this 1 battle die, I would roll targeting die. I would roll a battle die, and since I scored a burst symbol, they can ignore soldier symbols and flag symbols, but it does not say that they can ignore those guys. So 1 is removed from the game. So I did score a hit here. There's no people here, here, or here, so they really don't have an effect at all. And that was my reserve artillery scoring a hit on this German unit right there. Okay, with my first action, my first attacking action being the reserve artillery, because they have to go first whenever they're ordered this way. That was carried out, and now this second unit has the ability to fire, so we would count 3, 2, 1, so they would be able to shoot, and there's a possibility of rolling a burst symbol, so we'll go ahead and try, and sure enough, there's another burst symbol, so we took out another one of these German units here. And that's the end of my turn. I put this over here in the discard pile. Now, at the end of your turn, this is something different than Memoir 44. I can either choose to take another combat card, or I can choose to take 2 HQ tokens. At this point right now, I'm looking at my command cards. They're all singles, so I've got plenty of this. I'm going to take another combat card and add it to my hand instead of drawing 2 HQ. All right, and that is the end of my turn. It is now the German player's turn. Okay, now with the German player's turn, remember that I can play recon cards, and instead of drawing the top 2 and choosing one, I can just take one and then also take a medal instead. So keep that in mind, but I still am able to get victory medals by destroying units. So let's see here. I think I'm going to play, just happen to have a recon center. Any one of my units here can be ordered to move and attack if possible. So we're going to issue an order to one unit. We're going to issue an order here. We're going to have them move forward. But with that, I'm also going to play advance over the top. Now this advance over the top screen, I have to pay 2 HQ tokens to play it. And then it says, target all ordered soldier units. Immediately after the ordered unit moves, roll 2 dice. And for each soldier symbol rolled, I can move an additional hex. So I'm going to roll. Well, there you go. Didn't work out. Orders got messed up somehow. I didn't roll any, so they can't move extra. They're not in range, so my plan kind of failed. I did play this Recon Center, which would normally allow me to take 2 cards from here and choose one and discard the other, but I'm just going to take one and take a medal. So now the Germans are winning. So this is that behind the gun, under the gun feeling that the British people have. They are trying to storm our defenses and trying to get those extra victory points before we stack up on those guys. So at the end of my turn, I can either draw 2 more of these or 1 more of these, and I think I'm going to draw another one of these because I just think that would be best. All right, so now it's the British player's turn again. On the British player's turn, we are definitely going to start moving out. So we're going to play a move forward card, which allows me to order 2 battlefield units in each area, in each section. So we're going to order, first of all, these guys are going to move 2, come in here. These guys are going to fire. These guys are going to, they're going to move 1 in there. Now normally, when you move into a wire hex like these guys just did, you are supposed to stop and you cannot move any longer. And you also cannot battle. So I'm going to play for 1 HQ token. I'm going to play wire cutters. Wire cutters says that I can target all ordered infantry units. Any infantry unit on a hex with wire may remove wire and still battle if eligible. So I still have to pay attention to movement restrictions. All right, so wire cutters, which means these guys here, they automatically remove the wire, and now they are also able to battle because they only moved 1 hex. So that is 2 over here. These guys are going to fire as well. They're going to lay down some suppressing fire. And then I'm going to have 2 units in the middle go 1, 2, which allows them to remove the wire, but they cannot battle because they move 2. And then same thing with these guys here. They're going to move forward. Boom, boom. And remove the barbed wire, but cannot battle. Okay. So that is the end of my movement phase. Now I go to the attack phase, and I'm going to play another card. I'm going to pay 4 HQ tokens and play Machine Gun Barrage. Now Machine Gun Barrage allows me to target all ordered machine gun units, and they will be able to combat twice and roll an additional die each time they shoot. So now machine gunneries have a range of 3 dice, 3 dice, 3 dice, 1 die, and 1 die. So after 3 hexes away, their effectiveness really wears out, but at least they still do have that range, and I'm rolling an extra die here and battling twice. So this is a pretty good combination so far. But first we're going to do this guy. Now, as you might be able to notice, this guy looks a little bit different than everybody else. That's because he's a grenade chucker, and that gives his unit here a special ability that when they roll at a distance of 2, when they're rolling 2 dice, they also score hits on the deadly die side as well. So this is a pretty good thing here. So we're going to target those guys in the hex, in the trench. So burst symbols usually hit, and because he is a grenadier, that scores 2 hits. So this guy is gone. We place that dude there. And now we have a medal. I'm going to do these guys here. They have 3-3-3-1, but because of the card here, they get an extra dice. So they're going to be rolling 2 dice as well, and they get to roll twice because of the machine gun barrage card that I played. So I rolled a soldier and a flag. They're in a trench. They can disregard 2 of these and 2 of these, so they, of course, will choose to do so. And my second attack with those machine guns, because of the card that I played, they can ignore this one, but they can't ignore the burst symbol. So one of these guys is toast as well. All right, both of these guys moved 2, so I can't have them shoot at anybody. These guys only moved 1, so they will be able to shoot at those guys there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now these guys do not have a grenadier in their unit, so they don't have that special ability that that unit over there did, but they do still get to roll 2 dice, and we're going to target that bomber right there. And we rolled 2 soldier silhouettes, but they can ignore 2 soldier silhouettes, so they don't get any benefit there. My machine gunnery unit here is going to target that machine gun nest, 3-3-3-1 +1 for the card. So I get to roll 2 dice twice, again, because of the machine gun barrage. So I roll to hit. That is a flag and a deadly die symbol. They can ignore both of these. The second attack on that machine gun nest, again, they can ignore, they already ignored 1 of these, they can also ignore a second one, and then they can ignore up to 2 of those. So that was a null effect. Now, at the end of my turn, these cards go to their respective discard piles. And because I'm kind of low on HQ points, I'm going to choose to take 2 HQ tokens instead of another combat card. I replace the command card that I drew, and now it's the other person's turn. Okay, for the German player's turn, we see that the British player is making an advance there in the center, and we want to try to counteract that if at all possible. And so we're going to play Infantry Assault. Infantry Assault allows me to issue an order to all infantry units in one section of the battlefield, and those units can move 2 hexes and still battle. And we're going to target all of the infantry units, which is really just these 2 guys. And we're going to go 1, and we're in close combat there. And these guys can move 2, and we're also in close combat there as well. In close combat, you'll notice that each time we look at one of these close combat list, the first one is in parentheses. So that is a close combat, and then the rest are range attack powers. All right, so an infantry unit always rolls 3 dice in close combat, and then 2, 1, and 1 for ranged. So my German unit here is going to attack that guy right there. We take 3 dice and roll them. And there are 2 retreats and a burst symbol. So 1 model is removed, then they must retreat back 2 spaces because they have no terrain protection here. So 1, 2, they go back to their trench. Before I move on, these guys do have the opportunity to take ground if I want them to. But at this particular moment in time, I don't want them to, because I don't have a special combat card that would allow them to then make another attack. So I'm not going to do that. These guys, however, do have an attack on the unit in front of them. So we roll the 3 dice, and again, we have a symbol, a soldier silhouette, so that removes 1 of them, and then 2 retreat flags, which will send them back to their trench as well. All right, so the Germans have successfully routed that push forward that the British player has tried to levy against us. So at the end of my turn, I go ahead and put that command card back in its discard pile. I think I'm just going to take another card here, and that's the end of my turn. And that's pretty much how the Great War plays. I think this has a unique feel with the trench warfare that the other games don't have. One other unit that I didn't get to use because the cards just didn't play out right and my tactics didn't play out right are the mortar teams that are also part of your forces. And mortar teams are basically your field artillery units. That would be similar to what you would find in Memoir 44 or something to that effect. The mortar teams have a range of 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. So again, all the other units were taken care of. I showed you the reserve artillery, so we're good there. One other thing, I'm sorry, that I wanted to make sure I mentioned was that machine gun positions have the ability to crossfire. Now what that means is that quite simply, if I were, say, right here, and I had a command card that allowed me to order both of these machine gun units, then they would range out as normal. So let's say that they moved here. This gives me 3 dice from this machine gun nest on these guys, and then from this machine gun nest 3, 3, 3, 1, 1, it gives me 1 die. Instead of having to roll 3 dice for one attack and then 1 dice for their attack, I would be able to roll 4 dice all together on that one unit, which can be rather devastating. So in this instance, if I had been able to do that, that would be 2 models lost and they must retreat 1 square. But that's just an ability that machine gun units can do. They can crossfire on one unit and make their fire a little bit more devastating. Let's talk about what I think about the game. So that is the Great War. Some of the negative things about the game. First of all, I don't like this. It's too large. My second complaint about the game are the minis themselves and the fact that they came on sprues. That was a real letdown when I opened the box. Now, when I was removing the models from the sprues, I snapped off probably half. Maybe a third of the bayonets from the rifleman miniatures on both sides. I was very, very careful with getting those minis off of the sprues, and it did not matter how careful I was. When that little snip or that cut happened, there went the bayonet. One of my caveats with Memoir 44 is that there is a large setup time, and this one has even more setup time. The positives are this. They have a very good design here. I like how they took the Battlelore magic symbols. It's not the magic symbols on these dice, of course, but they took that idea of using magic and turned it into HQ points to simulate having to use the chain of command. In the end, my final thoughts are this. Great War is a superb addition to the Command & Colors game system. Yes, it has its flaws with the minis and the sprues, and they took a step back with the setup time, but I think all of that taken into account, the difference in experience that you get from Memoir 44, Command & Colors Ancients, Battlelore, to this, I think is worth that little bit extra setup time. And just be careful taking your models off the sprues when you get your copy. It's staying in my collection. I'm not getting rid of it, and I'm going to hopefully enjoy playing this for many years to come. See you on the flip side, folks.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.